Keeping the marathon in mind, it's time now for some political carbo loading before the marathon. Joining us for the Sunday Roundtable, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Just for the record, none of us here at the table is running the marathon tomorrow, right?
Are you kidding?
I know. Okay, good point. All right.
My wife and daughter.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
that's
your
right.
wife and daughter are.
That's right.
They'll be out there.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Great
That's
girls.
great. Very good. A lot to unpack for the conversation with the speaker. Marianne, what stands out? What sits at the top?
Two things. One, the incremental approach they took to migrants, which makes sense when you know that there may be a Democrat in the White House and the Congress, and give them some relief. That was smart. And two, there's officially a Phil Ang fan club, because anyone who, like Mariana, who can say he can walk down the tracks and not get electrocuted, I think it's official.
Rob.
I think there's a little room between him and the governor in terms of Mariano being more careful on spending with a little more accountability. No blank checks for the migrant situation.
All right, let's turn now to the presidential election. And again this week, the abortion issue is a key focus. Arizona's Supreme Court allowing a near total abortion ban, standing by a law that dates back to 1864. The former president, Donald Trump, he says it goes too far, but he also takes credit for appointing the justices who overturned Roe versus Wade. Is this the Achilles heel of the MAGA movement, or can Republicans make their way around this, Rob?
It's a minefield for Republicans.
A minefield.
It really is. And it could drive Democratic turnout, no question about it. And it could also drive pro-choice Republicans in the Wisconsin and Pennsylvania suburbs into Biden's arms.
Marianne.
This is the reason Democrats are going to win the White House and Congress, as we've said for a long time here. With this decision, now almost half of the states in this country do not provide abortions. 1 of every 3 women can't get an abortion now based on where they live. So everyone's had it. And Trump, let's be real here.
What's up with his messaging on this? What do you think of it?
Good luck, buddy. It's an IED every time you open your mouth, okay? And the reality is, Donald Trump would absolutely sign a national ban. And even if he didn't, they would go to the Supreme Court, where he has 3 appointees now, takes credit, as we just saw. And guess what? If he got back in the White House, either he or Joe Biden get 3 more appointments in the next 4 years. And that's what's going to cost
Trump's
him.
statement this week is evidence that it's a problem for Republicans. He said, I gotta get out in front of this.
But he thinks he can lie his way out of it. Good luck.
Inflation is also high on the issues that voters care deeply about. In fact, inflation ticked up in March, making hopes for a Fed interest rate cut less likely anytime soon. Bad news for President Biden, who gets hammered on the economy in the polls. His former chief of staff, Ron Klain, says Biden is, and I'm quoting here, on a fool's errand, doing ribbon cuttings at bridges. Marianne, is he right? Is he wrong? Is he?
Well, the estimate was for 3.4, and it was 3.5, and everybody lost their mind. The biggest ticket item of that one is gasoline. It's the gas prices that really are driving inflation. So I would expect Joe Biden to do something about gas prices this summer when everyone's driving, go to the strategic oil reserve, something like that. And Ron Klain's not wrong. He is doing a lot of bridge openings, and that's great and all that, but he does need to work on the cost of living.
What do you think, Rob?
Klain's right. People are not buying what Joe Biden is selling. Electricity, let's just look at one thing, up 30% since Biden took office. That's 13 times faster than the previous 7 years. Across the board, inflation is way up. It's a huge problem for Biden, and he looks like he's out of touch when he talks about getting inflation down. It went up from 1.4% to 9% on his watch. So now we're supposed to celebrate because it's down to 3.4. People aren't buying it. Those prices are baked in, and they hurt Biden.
But I would say it's not the issue. Abortion will trump this every
Economy
time.
matters.
Not to most women.
They're
when you
both
don't have
going to drive
when
voters.
you don't have rights,
Yeah.
you get paid less than men anyway, so it doesn't matter that much.
All right. Comments made by Senator Elizabeth Warren about the war in Gaza continue to make news. Asked if a UN court will find Israel is carrying out a genocide, Senator Warren said, "So if you want to do it as an application of law, I believe that they'll find that it is a genocide, and they have ample evidence to do so." She also offered more clarity, saying this: "I've been asked a legal question because there's an ongoing legal proceeding. What I think is far more important is the question about whether or not the deliberate attempt to block humanitarian aid is right or wrong, and I think it's wrong, and I think the United States should not be a party to that." Now, the Anti-Defamation League has accused Warren of amplifying what they call dangerous rhetoric. Has she?
Well, sure. And why isn't Elizabeth Warren banging the table, demanding that Hamas release the hostages that they took? Why isn't she condemning Hamas for invading Israel, killing and raping more than 1,000 people? She's not doing that. She's focused on Israel's response instead of the war crime that Hamas has committed.
What do you think, Marianne?
So two things. One, Elizabeth Warren did what most senators used to do all the time until Donald Trump arrived, which is if there's an ongoing legal proceeding, you don't weigh in on it. So that was her correction there. Number two, Israel is either incompetent or intentional in their waging of this war. And the killing of over 200 aides, and especially the World Central Kitchen aides, where we now found out this week that victims in the first car were able to get out after they were shelled, get to the second car, drive a half mile, and then got shelled again. So you're either incompetent or it's intentional. If it's intentional, it's a war crime. I will see you at The Hague.